In early 2025, China released an AI that changed everything. DeepSeek was cheaper, faster, and smarter than almost anything that had come before it. Investors panicked, and NVIDIA dropped by $600 billion instantly. It looked like China had won the AI race. DeepSeek and other Chinese AIs promised to conquer the global AI industry. But nowadays, most have become irrelevant. Why did this happen? How did China pull so far ahead, yet manage to drop the ball? Let's get right into it. When ChatGPT launched in late 2022, the world was taken by storm. Suddenly, millions of people were using AI to write essays, generate code, and replace entire Google searches overnight. Other major players like Anthropic and Gemini followed suit, and the model arms race began. But all three of these companies had something in common. They were American. No foreign AI lab had managed to come close to American companies in terms of model capability or distribution power. Many people were particularly surprised by China's lack of AI. China has world-class programmers, cutting-edge research labs, and the second largest economy in the world. If AI was to explode anywhere besides the US, it should have been China. Experts waited, but no Chinese AI ever came. So, politicians decided to make sure it stayed that way. In October 2022, the Biden administration passed sweeping export bans on high-powered chips to China, mainly focused on cutting-edge hardware from NVIDIA and AMD. The hope was that this would ruin China's AI plans even further. During this time, the main consensus was that China had completely missed the AI revolution. But China fought back. In 2023, tons of Chinese AI startups appeared almost overnight. New labs like Moonshot AI and Minimax grew rapidly and received massive venture capital investments. Established Chinese tech giants like Alibaba, ByteDance, and Tencent worked to build their own models and poured money into the new generation of AI startups. The West was particularly caught off guard because these startups managed to train their models despite tight export controls on chips. Some chip orders were rerouted through other countries and made their way into China, but many companies got creative and trained their models on older hardware. But no startup was more impactful than DeepSeek. Spun out of a Chinese hedge fund, DeepSeek proved to be one of the top Chinese models available. Not only was it useful, DeepSeek completely changed the AI narrative in two ways. First, DeepSeek was completely open source. This meant that developers could take DeepSeek, modify it in any way they wanted, and run it on their own machines. The major American players only offered closed-source models, with the exception of Meta's mostly underwhelming Llama models. For the first time, anyone could take a cutting-edge LLM and freely train it however they pleased. If you could train your own LLM and use it cheaper than ChatGPT, why would you ever subscribe to OpenAI? This terrified closed-source labs and their investors. Second, everyone assumed that companies needed massive GPU investments to train large language models. But DeepSeek claimed to train their AI for a fraction of the cost with significantly less hardware. While models like ChatGPT and Claude took hundreds of millions of dollars to develop, DeepSeek claimed that their R1 model cost only $6 million. So, China had managed to build a competitive open source model for a fraction of the price. Investors heard this and panicked. In January 2025, NVIDIA plummeted after DeepSeek rocked the market. They dropped by $600 billion, and other AI-related stocks like AMD and Vistra plunged. DeepSeek made investors wonder, if China is training smarter instead of throwing more chips at their models, is NVIDIA overvalued? Investors also began to fear that hyperscalers like CoreWeave, Meta, and AWS were building billion-dollar data centers for nothing. For a moment, it looked like the entire AI industry had been built on a lie. After this extreme drop, markets quickly recovered and the American AI mania continued. Importantly, investors noticed a few things. First, despite DeepSeek's impressive stats, American AI spend kept accelerating. ChatGPT and Anthropic continued to reach new user and revenue milestones, and venture capital firms supplied them with increasing amounts of money. This money was used to sign data center leases and place massive chip orders, which reinvigorated the public markets. Hyperscalers continued to build data centers that were quickly leased to AI startups. It seemed like the private markets knew something that the public didn't. One industry trend that was quickly noticed was induced demand. Induced demand is the idea that increasing the supply of a good decreases its price, which increases overall consumption. In this case, the good is AI. DeepSeek was significantly cheaper than closed source models and offered comparable performance. This caused many people to start using DeepSeek directly, or build cheaper AI products that used DeepSeek as the main model. Although a cheaper AI was on the market, more people began using AI as well. This meant that high-quality chips from companies like NVIDIA were still a major necessity. And for enterprise customers or large AI labs, the data centers built by hyperscalers were still needed. This is similar to cheap PCs increasing overall computer usage during the dot-com boom. Here's what NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang had to say.
R1 DeepSeek was a fantastic thing. And the reason for that is because R1 is the first open sourced reasoning model. What makes R1 incredible is that it reasons. That's why the answer is so good. This reasoning AI consumes 100 times more compute than a non-reasoning AI.
And that's you!
It was exactly the opposite. It was the exact opposite conclusion that everybody had.
Not only did DeepSeek become massively popular, but it also increased the need for chips overall. The next major trend was that Chinese AIs became commoditized. After seeing the success of DeepSeek, other open source models like Kimi and Qwen came to market and began attracting users. But because all of these models were open source and performed similarly, users struggled to differentiate between them. After all, if you're training your own AI, do you really care if you're using DeepSeek or Kimi as long as they perform similarly? Open source Chinese models quickly became commoditized, and no lab could gain a dominant market share. But the biggest thing holding back DeepSeek and other Chinese AIs was their lack of distribution. When fighting for user subscriptions and enterprise contracts, models aren't the only thing that matters. The tools and digital infrastructure around the AI is just as important. In the US, ChatGPT was able to capture significant market share due to its first mover advantage. This gave them time to improve the user experience and offer tools like image generation and codecs. Anthropic focused on fine-tuning their Claude model to produce Claude code. They packaged this in an enterprise-friendly ecosystem and signed massive contracts. Finally, Google was able to push Gemini throughout their massive product ecosystem. Even if these models were more expensive than DeepSeek, their massive distribution networks made them hard to disrupt. Chinese AI labs and tech companies lack consumer ecosystems or enterprise market share in the West. And for many Western enterprises, using a Chinese AI model also introduced legal and security concerns that American competitors simply didn't face. This means that although their models are technically solid, DeepSeek and others had no easy way to package and sell them to the end consumer. But China is pulling ahead in a much different AI field. Before we go any further, I'd like to know, what are your thoughts on DeepSeek and other Chinese AIs? Let me know in the comments section below. Despite not taking meaningful market share from American companies, Chinese AI labs did cause a few major changes. First, DeepSeek and others helped legitimize open source AI globally. Reports claim that AWS and Microsoft have both integrated DeepSeek into their operations. Big tech companies adopting open source AI will make it more likely that others will use it as well, increasing the strength of the industry and providing an alternative to closed source models. The DeepSeek scare also forced Western labs to compete and innovate more rapidly. Increased competition is almost always a good thing for the end consumer, since companies are forced to provide better services to earn revenue. Although many people likely won't ever use a Chinese AI, they can thank them for forcing American companies to innovate harder. Since China couldn't win with LLMs, they're trying to win the next phase of AI where the US is weaker: robotics. As the manufacturing hub of the world, China has been much more interested in developing AI for the physical world. The holy grail of this is the humanoid robot. Not only could humanoid robots power China's massive factories, they could be used in construction, hospitality, and healthcare. This would supercharge China's economy and make them a nearly unrivaled superpower. And they've shown surprising progress. In April 2026, China hosted a half-marathon race where people could compete against robots powered by AI. Not only did robots dominate the race, but the fastest robot even broke the human record for a half marathon. There are a few US companies like Figure and Tesla building in this market, but China is putting in much more effort. Although it looks like American AI companies are currently winning, China may take the lead when the AI race becomes physical. But while Chinese AI companies are rising, some American AI startups are already falling apart, and now they're making desperate moves just to survive. So if you want to see how Cursor is getting crushed in the AI war, click the video on screen.